Don't? Very good, thank you. Let's try this again. Good morning. Welcome to Westside Unitarian Universalist Church for our annual Solstice Spiral service. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Linda Phippen, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. It's good to see all of you who braved the inclement weather to be here in person, but if you are cozied up at home watching on YouTube today or sometime in the future, we are happy you're with us too. Westside welcomes all people of goodwill, regardless of their specific beliefs, to join us in our journey to seek meaning and community in our lives. If you're a visitor and are wondering what this display in the center is all about, all will be explained later. If you are here in person, we hope you will stay after the service when we will gather to decorate the church for the holidays and share a potluck lunch. Don't worry if you are a visitor or didn't bring a dish for the lunch. There's always plenty of food, and sharing is a big part of the Unitarian Universalist ethos, so please join us. Announcements about upcoming events and other useful information may be found in your order of service or will have been on the screen if you are streaming on YouTube. If you missed the announcements, you can always find the information on our website, which is westsideuuc.org, or in our newsletter. If you are not subscribing to the newsletter and would like to, you can do that on the website too. So it's the holiday season, and that means holiday music. So we will be starting off our service by singing number 226 in the gray hymnal, People Look East, and we'll do all three verses, and if you're willing and able, please stand and join in singing.
Good morning, everyone. Oh, we need to tilt this rascal up. Good morning. It's good to see you all. Happy beginning of what is a massive holiday season of all sorts of different traditions. If I haven't met you yet, I'm Reverend Carol Bedeau. I am privileged to serve here as minister. It's wonderful to have everyone who's here with us in person. And I see some wonderful new faces, some familiar faces we haven't seen in a while. It's awesome to have you here. And for those of you who are with us virtually, really glad to have you here today. So today we are celebrating the winter solstice. And that song we just sang, we're going to talk about it more in a minute, but it's really about looking towards the changing of the seasons already, even as we're sort of heading into the depth of the cold, dark time. Already the earth is sort of moving towards the inevitable spring. So as the bowl sounds this morning, I'm going to invite you to just find in yourself that place of peace, that place of hope, that place that is at your center, where you find light, even in the darkest times, because that's really what the solstice is about, the light in the darkness. So take a deep breath, settle into your seat, and as the bowl sounds, just find that place inside yourself where stillness and peace abide.
So Reverend Carol's going to light the chalice this morning, and we'll also light our 2 community candles, one for those who are suffering, whether in wars or privation a world away, or in less obvious and nearer places, including those who were unfortunately struck by the tornadoes yesterday here in our own state of Tennessee. We also like to remember that there are good people doing good things and hopeful things, large and small, in the world. So we will light a candle for Ellie Gianelli, a high school junior in Stockton, California, who has been sending colorful socks to nursing home residents in a campaign she calls Silly Socks for Seniors, since she was in the 7th grade. So they're not all watching TikTok and Instagram all the time. These words for the chalice lighting come from Charles A. Howe and are entitled New Light. We light this chalice to affirm that new light is ever waiting to break through to enlighten our ways, that new truth is ever waiting to break through to illumine our minds, and that new love is ever waiting to break through to warm our hearts. May we be open to this light and to the rich possibilities that it brings us.
We're going to adjust this microphone before we do anything else. There we go. Let us just take a moment, actually, and reflect for just a moment on the people who are struggling in the world right now, including people in our own community who experience tornadoes, and people further away. The holidays can be a really tough time of year in the best of situations, but let's just take a minute to be mindful. The spirit of the winter solstice is really about holding that struggle, those kinds of difficulties, that kind of darkness and pain in our hearts, while also holding light at the same time. That's really the point of the winter solstice celebrations. Now, some of you may be familiar with that opening hymn. I know it's not one we've sung. We sing it this time of year every year, but it's not the one that you hear on your radio stations during the holiday season. People Look East is specifically written for the Advent season, which is, in the Christian tradition, the preparation leading up to Christmas. This particular version of the song that we sing was written by a woman named Eleanor Fairjean, and it first was published in songbooks in 1928. She, just FYI, Eleanor Fairjean is most well known for her song, Morning Has Broken. She's the composer of that piece as well. Our song today, People Look East, her version is a rewriting of an older French country carol, which the tune is named after the town that this song comes from, Besançon in France, and the French version of it dates back to at least the 17th century. We're not sure how much older than that it is, but probably. The melody is traditional, and it's a melody that we may hear. Actually, the tune, Besançon, is used for other things as well. So we might recognize the melody, but not really recognize the words. The song invites us to look east. It's the beginning. People look east. The time is near of the crowning of the year. And what it does is it uses descriptions of the natural world to represent the arrival in the Christian tradition of Jesus. So things, the sun rising, all these different images from the natural world represent Jesus coming as a bright light, comparable to spring returning, right? But that taps into an even older tradition that is honoring the winter solstice, the time when, though the world is darkest and the nights longest, we know in fact that the days are going to get longer soon and spring will eventually come. Now, the winter solstice, which occurs on December 21st, most of us are aware of this, but just as a reminder, that day, it's the darkest day of the year. I was feeling it this morning when I had to get up to get ready to come to church. It's like, it is really dark and cold. In the summer at 6:30, things are already happening. Chickens are out, everybody's busy, stuff's already happening. This time of year, not so much. But this darkest time of year, the winter solstice, only lasts for a day. It marks a turning point when once again the days begin to lengthen. Though ancient winter solstice traditions gave way to more modern Christian traditions like Advent and the kinds of Christmas traditions we celebrate, these older traditions are still present in the images and the themes of the contemporary practices. So one of the jokes that I'm sure you've all heard is that we replaced the return of the S-U-N, sun, with the arrival of the S-O-N, sun, right? That's kind of like these traditions are melded together. Well, each year for many years at Westside, we have marked the season of the winter solstice with the ritual of walking the solstice spiral. But, we were having a conversation about this the other night, and I realized that we haven't actually talked about the origins of these traditions in a number of years. We haven't talked about the origins of ritual walking or this specific tradition in many years. So we're going to talk about those a little bit before we practice it. This sort of spiral walking is meant to represent our own movement from the outer to the inner, from an outward focus to an inner focus, from the outward kinds of energy of the warmer, sunnier seasons to the more inward nature of the winter season. It represents our ability to find light in darkness and to seek the center of ourselves or inner truth in the winding, often confusing journey of human life. And though the tradition of walking the winter spiral, this tradition that we do, it's pretty new to Westside, it's actually very, very ancient. It comes from literally millennia of traditions. The tradition of ritual walking, particularly in circles or spirals or labyrinths, appears throughout human history and from all different religions and all over the world. So here are some early examples. Some of the early examples of these motifs, these kinds of spirals and designs, come to us, for example, from Brittany in northern France, where they appeared as early as 3,500 BCE. I'll give this little lecture one more time. We used to say BC and AD. All right, we used to mark those time periods as before Christ and Anno Domini, in the year of our Lord. We don't typically do that so much anymore. We say BCE, before the Common Era, and CE, in the Common Era, which allows us to honor all religious traditions in the marking of time rather than explicitly favoring one tradition over all others in the way we mark time. So, 3500 BCE. That's 5,500 years ago. Newgrange in Ireland, actually, about the same time, has a circle spiral motif that was built into it in the same period, and that particular site is known to mark the winter solstice. Now, probably the one that we've heard, the story of the labyrinth that most of us heard, is the story of Theseus and the Minotaur. You know the Minotaur story, right? Okay. And that's a story in which it's set in a context of lots of other labyrinths and circular designs, but this one comes down to us. It's one in which a labyrinthine maze is used to trap a hero in a cave with a monster. So in that story, the labyrinth, at the center of the labyrinth, there is a minotaur, a monster. And in that version, the movement of the labyrinth is kind of reversed. Instead of inviting us to contemplate moving into the light at the center, there's a monster at the center, perhaps representing our own inner demons, our shadows, our fears, our worries, our concerns. And perhaps that story represents the journey into the darkness and the struggle to leave it behind and find our way back to the light as Theseus comes out of the cave. Another huge labyrinth design is in Hawara, Egypt. There you will find an archaeological site. It's a massive site. It's not just a space where there's a labyrinth. It's an entire temple complex that's designed as a labyrinth. So, and what the archaeologists tell us is that this temple complex represents the geography of traveling into the afterlife in their belief system. So the buildings and the walkways between the buildings all represent a very complex narrative that as you travel through these buildings, you are symbolically traveling through the journey into the other world. Now, probably the most famous formal labyrinth, similar to the one that we will be using today, the one that we hear the most about in, world travel stuff, is the labyrinth that is built into the floor of the cathedral in Chartres, France, in northern France, which is about an hour outside of Paris. And it is like many, many cathedrals and even small churches from that time, where this was designed in about the year 1200. In the center of one of the main areas of the cathedral, the floor stones are built into a very complex labyrinth pattern. So the alternating colors of the tile in the floor, dark and light, lay out the path of the labyrinth there. And actually, that particular labyrinth is open on certain days when you can walk it. It's a little bit, for some of us who really like labyrinths, a little bit sacrilegious that on the days when it's not being used, it has metal folding chairs sitting on top of it. So that's a little bit interesting. But nevertheless, this Chartres is an example of a huge, beautiful labyrinth, but they were, at that time period in Europe, installed in many churches and in the gardens of churches. So our labyrinth here is considered a standard single circuit labyrinth, which you have to imagine at Chartres is 4 of these together. So like imagine it like a 4-leaf clover. The circuit is it's a 4-circuit labyrinth. Okay? There are many very complex labyrinth designs. There are, and you can go, if you feel like it, go on the internet, you'll find all kinds of cool labyrinth designs. They are used for ceremonial purposes, for meditation purposes. Some of you will remember a couple years before Carol Coffey passed away, Carol built a labyrinth out of daffodils in his yard at his lake cottage. He planted a labyrinth of hyacinth and daffodils and they would bloom in succession. So it would be a yellow labyrinth that would then give way to a purple labyrinth in his yard, which was beautiful. All of these sorts of ceremonial pathways have been used for millennia as a way of doing walking meditation, to induce states of heightened mindfulness, to evoke the journey of the self towards a deeper, more authentic way of knowing, to understand reality through the journey of walking. Because let's think about that for a minute. How many of you have thought, I'm going to go do that thing over there, and you had a straight line planned, and then it didn't go that way? So one of the things the labyrinth or the spiral helps us remember is that the journey is often not a straight line. it's often circuitous. It often winds back upon itself over and over and over again. And sometimes we end up where we thought we'd be, and sometimes we don't. These sorts of pathways appear around the world, and as I've said, all through history. In Tibet, there is a 32.3-mile trail that circles around and around the sacred Mount Kailash. It takes 3 days approximately to complete this walk, and that trail has been used for over 15,000 years. Buddhists maintain that walking the circular trail around Mount Kailash in a mindful way erases the sins of a lifetime. And they say that if you walk it 108 times, 108 is an important number in Buddhist traditions because it is said to represent the number of energy pathways in the body, 108. And so if you walk the circuit around Mount Kailash 108 times, one would reach nirvana. So the same focus on the geometry of the labyrinth or spiral, if you look at Buddhist traditions, it's also present in the repeating motifs of mandalas. Think about the mandalas you've seen, right? They have these winding, circuitous, repeating patterns. In the Muslim tradition, the required pilgrimage to Mecca ends with what is called tawaf, which is a circumambulation of the Kaaba, which is the central religious building in Islam. So if you'll see pictures of this, it's an amazing thing to watch. Only true believers are allowed to enter it, so you can't just go do this. You have to go in. It is a sacred space, and it is a sacred action to walk around this. But if you enter, what you will see is that the people who have come from wherever they have around the world to make their pilgrimage go to this place where there is a central building in the center, and they walk in a circle around it, and thousands of people spiraling together around this building. Okay? Such circumambulation practices are important also in Hinduism and are represented in their temples and in their rituals. In Jewish traditions and celebrations, for example, there's a walking around of the bride in the traditional Jewish wedding, right? And in many other indigenous rituals and traditions, if you've ever been to a powwow, you will see Native North American practices involve dancing in a ritual circle in a repetitive way. So even here close to home, there are many buildings in our area, religious buildings, personal homes, where people have labyrinths. When I lived in California, I used to frequently go to the nearby Catholic convent where they had a beautiful labyrinth in their gardens, and I would walk the labyrinth in their gardens. And if you walk along the greenway here behind our building, and you go not that way, but the other way, away from Campbell Station and Turkey Creek. If you go the other direction and you walk just a little ways along the greenway, you will come to the backside of St. John Newman Catholic Church and School. And what you will find there along the greenway is their circular walkway that in the center has a memorial pillar, and that circular walkway walks around the Stations of the Cross, which are used during the Lenten season. You walk around the Stations of the Cross in a circular manner. So there have been times when I've taken a break here and just gone out to the greenway and walked there and walked their circular path. So this is all over the world, in all sorts of different designs, in all sorts of different cultures, all through human history. There is something psychologically profound about walking through a spiritual meditation that allows us to reflect on certain things in our life. When we practice our ritual here, are participating in a much more ancient human tradition that crosses the planet and spans vast amounts of time. Now, our very specific solstice ritual was brought to us by our former religious education director, Wendy Weiss. And this particular version, we've modified it a little bit for our logistics, but the version that we started with was invented in the early 20th century by a man named Karl Koenig, who was an Austrian pediatrician. And he fled the Nazis in Austria and went to Scotland at the time of World War II. And he was someone who developed healing systems to help children who had trauma or who had other developmental challenges. And he created what is called often the winter spiral walk to help children understand the idea of finding light in darkness, to help them anticipate the good, to mindfully move towards it. This particular winter spiral walk, his version, is used widely in Waldorf schools and Montessori schools all over the world now. In the schools, the way they practice it is the children actually take time to collect evergreen boughs and pine cones and natural objects to build the spiral themselves, which has its own spiritual significance, right? We collect the materials of our lives. We build the pathways we walk with our own lives. In our tradition, today for the first time, we are changing our tradition. In the past, we have done what is usually done, which is to take red apples and core them out and put the candles in the apple core. So that's something also in a lot of schools, the children are able to do that. They take the apples, they take the cores out, and then you put the candles in the apple holders. We're trying to be a little bit safer. They're a little wobbly. They're a little bit more likely to tip over. There's a little bit more hazard there. So being safety conscious, we're using red candle holders this year. And in the traditional Waldorf or Montessori tradition, all the natural materials that are used to make the spiral walk are then, after the walk, returned to nature. Now today, as we do our walk, there are a few options you have for participating. So I'm going to invite you, if you are watching us virtually, take a minute right now and find a candle if you would like to do that, so that you can participate in this ritual where you are. For those of us who are here in the room, you have a couple options. It's difficult sometimes to walk the labyrinth, right? Sometimes that is just too complicated and we need help, or we need a version that works better for us. So if you do not want to try to walk this winding spiral, you can take a candle or have someone bring you a candle and place it simply on one of the outer plates. That is an option. If you would rather not get up at all, raise your hand and one of us will come and bring you a candle, and then you can hold it for a minute and then we can put it down for you. There are all sorts of options. For those of you who want to actually walk the spiral, we're going to dim the lights a little bit. In a minute, Jerry, I'll give you a cue to do that. We will dim the lights a little bit. You will go to the table where Chris is going to help us with the lights. Now, in the original version of this, what you would do is you would take your candle unlit, light it in the center, and then go all the way back out and put your candle down lit. But that would mean that the people coming in and the people going out would have to cross each other, which is super complicated. So we're making it a little simpler. We're going to light the candle outside the labyrinth. As you walk the labyrinth, you can place it on any plate you like, okay? And what I'm going to ask is the very first person to walk the labyrinth. Chris, would you walk the labyrinth first and light our central candle as our beginning? So one of us has to light the way. Always. We are always lighting the way for each other. So if you are at home and you are not actually walking this with us, here's what I would encourage you to do. I would encourage you to dim the lights if you're not already snuggled deep in bed. Dim the lights and imagine yourself in a mindfulness meditation rather than a walking meditation, a sitting or a lying meditation. Imagine yourself perhaps walking someplace beautiful in nature, maybe climbing a mountain, maybe walking through the forest. Meditation of all sorts is meant to calm our minds, center our focus, and bring us to a sense of inner peace and calm, clarity. So the choir is going to be singing. We'll be playing some music. And I invite you, after Chris has walked through the spiral and he returns back to be able to share candles with those of you who want to walk it, come forward whenever you feel ready. We'll play the music as long as it takes. Take time to imagine the light in the candle representing your life, the light that you carry into the world. As you walk or as you sit, think about how your presence lights the way for others, how you contribute to a greater scene of beauty that we only can do collectively in the community. Ask yourself, what do I bring? What light do I leave behind me as I move through this precious, brief life? And what light do I need to witness in others? What light do I need to be able to appreciate that others are bringing that helps me keep going? So, Jerry, if you could dim the lights for us a little bit, not all the way off because we want to be able to see a little bit, but just play with them and dim them down a little bit. And I'm going to invite the choir to come up on the chancel. We will be singing for you. Chris will walk the spiral first and light the central candle, and then you are invited to come forward and he will give you a candle that you can carry into the spiral.
fires burning bright, we dream of the spring this winter's night. Surely the earth is turning from dark to light. Gather friends in reverence here to celebrate the longest night. Light of our hearts, fires burning bright,
So beautiful. Take a minute and just appreciate what it is possible to create with the simple act of lighting a candle and placing it in front of the world. I'd like to take a moment to notice the plates that are empty. I know that we could say, well, that just happened that way. And it did. But let's take a moment and just notice that there are a few empty plates. And remember the people who are not with us today. People who maybe have been here with us in the past to walk this spiral. And also people that are in our hearts that may not be here for other reasons, but they're people that we're remembering. Sometimes the darkness comes with loss, and we have to light a candle in our own hearts to hold memories, to hold hope, to retain the spirit of love. The lights flicker. Every once in a while, a candle will blow out. But that central light that represents the light of community, allows us to continue to relight the candles year after year. So soon we will be picking this all up so we can have a potluck, which is also a really important way to share community, right? In most ceremonial cultures, in cultures that practice these kinds of rituals, and we'll be doing this even next week for those of you who attend our Yule celebration, we'll do a ritual activity like this. It's frequently followed by food. Frequently, and that'll happen next week too in the afternoon when we celebrate Yule. And there's a reason for that. The reason is that the act of going deep in ourselves, doing it in community, then we want nurturance. We want to connect, we want to talk, we want to share, we want to enjoy each other's company, we want to feel like we're part of something that also feeds us. So in a little bit, we'll pick this up, and we'll put tables here, and we'll share food, and it will still be just as beautiful. Also remember that this light that we share here, we take it into the world. So there are things we do to take this light into the world. One of the great practices of this kind of meditation is to go into the self and then come back out. Right? There's a symbolic gesture where we center into ourselves, we figure out, who am I? What is it that's true for me right now? What do I want to do in the world? And then we walk our way back out into the world to offer that back to the world. Hopefully, when we do walking meditation or even sitting meditation, what happens is we become even more centered and more present and more able to be of service and to bring our light out more effectively. So there are some ways that we're doing that here over the holidays at Westside. Please join us for potluck today if you are here. We'll also be decorating the church. We are also going to be doing some things over the next few weeks to take it back out into the world. So you can always donate to Westside. You can always contribute to the support of this congregation, either through pledging or through one-time donations. We do not pass the plate typically anymore, but we do have a QR code and a box in the building. There's a box in the back table there. If you want to leave a cash or check deposit, you can do that. We also are collecting things still for Samantha Monday's program. Right now we're focusing on shoes to support people coming out of incarceration into sober living. And today we'll be wrapping the gifts that we've gathered for our Family Promise families. So those things are all happening. And on Christmas Eve, in 2 weeks from now, we will not have a morning service. We will have an evening service at 6 p.m. And at our Christmas Eve service, we will actually take an actual contribution. We'll actually pass the plate. Because what we do on Christmas Eve every year is the collection is used to fund the minister's discretionary fund, which is then used through the entire year to support people in the congregation, in the local community, who are in need of some sort, whether that is helping pay a utility bill, or that's helping with rent or medical expenses, other kinds of needs like that. So on Christmas Eve in 2 weeks, we will actually take a donation contribution, share the passing the plate. One other suggestion you might do this year that supports our justice and generosity projects out in the world is, if you haven't finished your holiday shopping, you might consider buying something from the bookshop at the bottom, which is an organization in Knoxville that we support that helps the African American community with cultural centering and identity. They have a wonderful bookshop, fiction and nonfiction and all kinds of great stuff. So if you have a reader in your gift list this year, you might consider looking at the Bottoms Bookshop for a gift. All right, we are going to sing one more song. It is traditional, but it is also an Advent song, and you can stand up, you can get your books out, but you probably know the words to the first verse. We'll only sing the first verse. Deck the halls. Now, the reason why deck the halls with boughs of holly, this is all about the winter solstice. Decking the halls has been part of a solstice tradition for centuries. People bring greens inside at this time of year as another way to remember that life abides even in the darkness, right? So I'm going to invite you to rise in body and spirit. We're just going to sing the first verse. You probably don't need the book to look it up, but please sing as you are willing and able. There will be many more Christmas carols to come in the next couple of weeks. So that's just your first taste of them. If you feel so inclined, you can hold your own hand. You can put your hands behind your back if you don't want to hold hands. You can hold the hand of a neighbor. Whatever it is that makes you feel best right now. I'm going to come over here and join you guys. As we deck the halls in our homes, in our offices, in our churches, wherever it is we gather, as we decorate and celebrate and do all the things we do for the holidays, let us remember that at the center is the light within us, the light that we share with the world. The whole business of lighting up trees and lighting up houses and lighting up lawns is to remind us that the light we shed in the world matters, and it matters most when the times are the darkest. Please know that you, each and every one of you, have it in you to carry light into the world. May you do so this holiday season with joy and with a sense of deep inner peace. Go in peace, go in celebration, and please join in our celebration here as you are able. Have a wonderful day, everyone.